John's staged model of reflective practice uses a series of cue questions to enable the reflective practitioner to think through a particular event or experience in the classroom. And what we need to do is consider the importance of these cue questions and understand the detail which is required of the reflective practitioner to ensure that the model provides a very structured and meaningful approach to reflection. In terms of the descriptive phase of the process, there needs to be questions which help the reflective practitioner describe the events. And we can consider descriptive questions in certain particular categories. One category would be phenomenon questions. These questions would be focusing the reflective practitioner's attention on the experience directly and in detail. What's the here and now experience that the teacher has had? Then there are also causal questions that the reflective practitioner needs to consider. These are questions which are focusing the teacher's attention on cause and effect relationships within the experience. And then, of course, there are context questions. These are the sorts of questions which provide the background for the description of the experience, the setting, and how all this ties together. And another type of question within the descriptive phase would be clarifying questions. These are focusing the teacher's attention on questions which are looking to make sure that there is no influence in terms of perception or indeed assumptions about the experience. And in terms of cue questions, the reflective practitioner also needs to consider reflection questions. These are focused in particular areas. One area needs to help the reflective practitioner consider what they were trying to achieve. So questions need to be formulated around that particular idea. And another idea where the reflective practitioner needs to focus questions will be on why they undertook particular actions and to understand these. And in relation to that particular area, the reflective practitioner needs to consider questions about the consequences of those actions, of those interventions in the classroom. And of course, another area where, as a reflective practitioner, you need to write cue questions would be in your emotional response. How did you feel about your intervention, the things that you did, and the experience that occurred? So these areas all are part of a domain of reflection, and what the reflective practitioner needs to do is consider cue questions within these particular areas. How did the students respond to particular interventions? How did they feel about it themselves? And perhaps another important area to consider some cue questions for the reflective practitioner would be in trying to understand how they know themselves how the students felt. Another area for cue questions would be, what are the influencing factors on the experience? And the influencing factors can be both internal and external to the experience. Or in other words, what influences were internal for the reflective practitioner which affected their decision making? And then what were the influences from outside, from external, or in other words, the school environment or other colleagues which influenced decision making? And what sources of knowledge support the way the teacher is working, and considering how these are influencing the actions in the classroom and the decisions which are being made. And then Questions which are focused on helping the reflective practitioner consider how they could do things better, how they could actually change the situation. And particular areas would be looking at choices which are being made, as well as the consequences of those choices. So consider Q questions within these areas. And then finally, Q questions need to be focused on the learning that the reflective practitioner can gain from the staged model. Questions focusing on their response, their emotional response to the experience, and also what sense they make professionally of the experience, and also how the experience is adding to the body of knowledge that they're acquiring as a professional.